Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed look into my creative process. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, and your pal. And I'm excited to have you back. Episode 215, modeling a little fantasy sword here. You can see the sketch that I've got pulled up. Call it maybe the demon sword. You're gonna have sort of a bone-shaped finial handle here, and maybe like a demon eye and some sparkles. Depending on how long time goes, maybe we'll even do a rotating animated GIF of this bad boy. But we'll be referencing this a lot as we go through. So let's just start out by modeling the blade. We're going to do fairly simply here. And that. Hit K and L for a loop cut. Create our little point here. And I think this blade is maybe a little short, so what I might wind up doing is exaggerating those proportions a bit. Get a loop selection on that. Move it from there. Scale this down almost to 0. Let's do like 10%. That's going to give us a little edge. Cool. Actually, I want to scale up the central part a little bit to give us that kind of chunky bevel a lot of swords have that look pretty cool. What we can also do is bring down the Fong angle. Look good. What I'm seeing here actually is I kind of want a slightly different topology here. I'm going to let that thing locking onto the right point here. Okay. Got the other side like this as well. U and Z to collapse these together. Work. Get rid of these extra points. You don't have to. Makes the model a little cleaner if you do. Oops. Successfully collapse. So that's U and Z to collapse. What's up, Laurel? I'm going to be making this this sword that I've sketched out. Now I'm just working on the blade, as you can probably tell. Fairly simple. Why don't I actually this up as well? Let's see what we're working on a little bit here. Do the handle and this sort of cross member piece, call that. Wouldn't call it a Minecraft thing necessarily. Cool sword. This guy. Perspective here. And I'm just going to throw that all in a symmetry. This is too big. Shrink that down. If you wanted to, you could bring this image in and trace it directly. I don't think we need to do. A little better. The thing I noticed about the sketch that I quite like, sort of tapers perfectly straight at the moment. Have these vertices, scale them up. It gives it a little more of a cartoony look there. Still not satisfied with how. What's up, Ashish? It is rendered in Octane, but a lot of the time we're going to be spending modeling. So there are principles that will apply to really any kind of engine you want to render this with. Don't you worry. All right, now I'll probably come in and adjust. The faces of these don't look super great yet, so I'm going to come in and adjust those eventually. Continue with the modeling process. This will have fillet. For now, I think I'm just going to scale this down along one of its axes. Oops. Keep that thing parametric. Allow me to modify it later if need be. that is actually open. Blue on me. Let me tighten that up a little bit. Both of these are. There. Cool. Great reasons to keep this parametric is here. I've made a quick copy of this handle, scale it up slightly, and I'm going to sort of make the grips here. All I'm going to do for that, select this, start in a soft selection. The reason I'm doing soft selection is because by default, these cylinders don't have connected caps. This just allows me to grab that whole edge without them detaching from one. I'm just going to scale that up just a little bit. Give us something to sort of overlap on. And you know, you could just clone these down, and that would be sort of perfectly easy. What I want to do is make it look kind of hand wrapped and more organic. I'm going to copy these down, and then I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust, the size. I'm just going to rough them up a little. Yeah, less mechanical, perfect. Again, I'm just going to use soft selection. Let's make that a little bigger. This angle. What's up, the total post? What's up, Nathan? Just sort of alternating the angle of these in no exact or particular way kind of makes it look a little more, not realistic necessarily. It's still a very stylized look, but I think it adds a lot of personality, that's for sure. Cool. There's some other swords I drew, but let's focus on. I think the end here, I was sort of thinking about how the end of like a bone has that kind of knobby shape. Cool. We add some quick lighting. See it a bit better while we're modeling it. Again, this is Octane, but I mean, just an area light. You can do similar things in Cinema. Settings will look a little different, but I'm going to turn that way down. These lights are often really strong by default. Let's different format here. 60. Also, this is a nice little trick that I like with Octane lights, is I can just turn the opacity down and just kind of make that disappear. All right, look. What else? I think we work on that eye, and I think we should also work on faceting for these. That first. Now, what I'm going to do is, what I do in a lot of my videos and a lot of my models is I'll just, something that I'm going to make editable, I will make a copy of and put it in a null labeled off. You just make a separate layer, I suppose, but this is how I like to work. So I'm going to expand that extrusion. See what's the best way. Cut. worked a little better than I thought it might. Don't want soft selection on here, so off. Terrible. My mistake is not doing it sides at once. I'm going to undo that. Try that again. We got sides selected. Let's go into our front view. Angled weirdly. Thanks for sharing that info. Go back to my knife. Restrict to selection because I have both sides selected actually, and that'll prevent me from messing anything up too bad over here. And I'm going to turn off visible only. Get in here and this is fairly rough topology. I can clean that up a little. Back to soft selection. I'm going to turn on surface. That'll prevent it from reaching based on distance. It'll like travel the distance along the surface of the model here. Issue here. Not sure why the stream dropped out, but it did. I apologize for that. But we're back. I'm going to try to stitch these videos together somehow after the fact. But anyways, thanks for bearing with me. We're back here. So what I think I'm going to do with this extrude, simply add a polygon reduction to it. Find sort of the right level of reduction strength. I do kind of like this faceted geometric look, and we don't need as much subdivisions as we had. I know this isn't the cleanest topology, but it'll be fine for what we're doing. I think it adds to the sort of stylized look. Find the right level. I think that's good. I'm going to expand that once more, so I can grab this a little bit pointier. I grab these as well. That nice faceted look. Awesome. Cool. So now let's move on to this evil eye that's at the center of the sword. What I'm going to do is simply add a sphere, orient it this way. Actually, often when I make eyes, I'll use this orientation because that's great for a round eye like people have. This one's going to have this sort of cat eye. Easier to orient it this way. Before I expand this, however, I'm going to copy of it and rotate it back. Turn that in. Whoops. Hemisphere here. Allows me to make these eyelids fairly easily. Grab these and scoot them forward just a little bit. Got that. I'm going to expand it. Control A to select all. D to extrude. That. Rotate it. Put a lower eyelid here. I'm going to actually group these and throw them in a sub D surface just to smooth them a little bit, which is nice. I'm going to grab this central guy. make a copy of them. C to expand. Isolate them. Let's get a look. Which are the two forward facing? These two sort of strips. What I like to do is, I'm isolating things like this. I like to select what I need and then hit U and then I to select the inverse, just delete them out. Select them all, hit D to extrude. This guy will also get subdivided. Scoot him down in size just a little bit. 1, leave it at 2. What I'm going to do is group this into an null, call it I, and I'm going to actually shrink Z axis, make it along the Z, just so it's not protruding so much. Copy of this sphere, throw it in our symmetry. Whoops. Little reduct shape. I. Nice. I'm liking how this is coming together. Kind of sweet. I think now's a good time to start texturing it. Metallic material. Blade here. Then it looks like it disappears, but it's just reflecting perfectly the background around it. Thanks, Santiago. Appreciate you tuning in. What I need to do is just turn the specular down a little bit. Roughness up just a touch. Could also probably do, I think, to sweeten it up a little bit, is in the specular channel, let's add gradient. Put it on a little bit of an angle. Let's add like a very light blue kind of color. Give us that shiny metallic sort of gradient look. That might be a little strong. Turn that down a bit. Cool. That's a start. We'll probably want to add some additional lighting to get some really nice reflections going on here, but get to that. This tip isn't sharp enough. Scale this down. All right, let's make just a nice normal diffuse material for our handle here. Like grip. This I'm envisioning as just sort of like a leathery material. Brownish. Darker. I want to grunge this up a little bit. Let's add a little bit of a bump map as well. Let's turn this one into a glossy material. To have a little bit of a shine, a little bit of roughness. What we should do is make this kind of like a bright yellow color. That cat eye look going. I think what we should also do. Let's see. Universal material. It's emission. Turn a lot of this other stuff off. So that, it's the dispersion. By default, this is going to be way too strong. We bring that down. Yeah. 2% really. How about materials behaving differently? I think we need another sort of metallic material. I want to go maybe more for like the dark bronzy kind of look. Much rougher. Adding a little bump here, I think, is really going to help the look of the side guards. Hey Cliff, thanks for the answer, or the question rather. In terms of an answer, yeah, I mean, I think an NVIDIA card is really helpful. To be honest, I'm not an expert on this kind of thing at all. I would say the best kind of computer system to have is like, I guess, the best one you can afford. But it's not that important. I wouldn't like not get started on your journey if you don't have a budget for like a really badass computer. There's still a lot of excellent stuff you can accomplish using Blender, which is free, and a relatively inexpensive computer. I was doing everything off of a laptop for the first you know 10 years of my career. I only recently updated to a computer with a decent graphics card. I think I can do some stuff to kind of update the lighting and make that look a little nicer. I think the model of the sword looks pretty sweet overall. So, how I feel about this bronzy material. Maybe it needs to be a little less specular. I think one thing that would help the look of this grip is to a little bit of edge detail. So now we're seeing how annoying it is that that cylinders don't actually come connected. So I'm just going to throw the connect object and angle. So I'm going to use angular part here, and you can see how it's added a tiny little bevel. Maybe I'll bump that up to 2. That's just going to give us a better look overall, I think. A little bit of rounding, a little bit of edge detail. That works well. I also take these, side, volume mesher and builder, kind of smooth these together a little bit. Good. Here's another thing we should do. I think that'll improve the look quite a bit, is add an Octane Sky. And go ahead and load your eye. A couple saved away here. That's Park one. that downloaded for free. I think at HDRI Haven. Great website. If you're looking for HDRIs, you can see it totally changed the look of this. Got a lot more reflection going on. Turn the power down. Tag. Octane object tag. Turn off camera visit. Oh, that didn't work. There you go. Add another Octane Sky. Call this the visible environment. And I can change this to color. That's sort of a lightish gray. Or maybe you can go crazy. Give it a nice bright color. Kind of playing with the color ranges here to see what works. I wasn't loving the effect of the realistic HDRI. I think something a little flatter here will add to sort of the stylized look we have going. So what I think I can do is turn this down a little bit and add light here. Kind of yellowish, really warm hit. Looks good. Color range of the sword, so this is feeling a little bit better to me. I think what we can also do, add a very simple background. Just like give it a little bit of a shadow. High time we add a little camera here. Out of that. Zero that out. Zero these out. So we got sort of a head-on view. Kind of a camera angle. Yeah, that blade needs to be a little bit longer. Better. All right, now the last thing I think I want to do is sort of a flame effect around the eye. I think I want to use a primitive random field to make that happen. So let's see. Shift C to just enter this search thing. Go to random field. Scale that up just a little bit larger. You can see that I've already added this cone shape here, and I'm gonna focus on these two guys for now. What you can do is you can take this random field, add it into volume builder, volume mesher. Now if I hit subtract, this random field will be subtracting from this clone. Cool. And then so the box size I want to make a little larger. All right, now we know we've got our whole cone within the bounds of this random field. I'm going to turn off the visibility of the random field. It's a little annoying to look at, to be honest. And instead of under random mode, I'm going to go to noise. This is going to give us much greater control. Start with turbulence. Some of these values. Now I'm just sort of experimenting to find the right noise that's going to give us a flame-like look. Another thing that's going to help us actually is to come down in resolution. I guess come down in size, but up in resolution. Now, if you turn on the animation speed, these will animate. Now, another thing that I think might help the look is to add a smooth layer. Turn that down a little bit, around 50%. That's going to just kind of smooth some of this geometry out. With that turned on, I think I can go up in voxel size, which is just a slightly less dense mesh. Now we're getting sort of a flame-like effect here, which is kind of nice, actually. So let's scale the whole thing up a bit. And I realize that I want a rounded bottom to this. The flame effect is sort of centered around the eye. What I could probably do is slide this whole thing forward just for better visibility. Well, and then we've got to come up with material. Let's see here. I'm going to do a specular material. It's going to look like glass by default. Add a little bit of roughness. And off a lot of this opacity we want on, displacement. Let's turn roughness off as well. I'm gonna go down to 24 frames for this. Seems like a good length. I'll just group everybody. Except for this. Not the background. Octane lightning. That must have been accidentally selected as I was adding things to the scene. All this other stuff. Off this board. Not loving that effect. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this random field and keyframe the position. That's going to move the noise through this field and selectively remove areas. need to add one more light, sort of a backlight. And I'm just going to kind of point that past the object at the background here. Add effect. But it's a little bit too strong, so I'm going to turn that to 35 to 25% there. Turn temperature way down. Bounce a little more really reddish light in there. And opacity down. I don't want to see the guy. All right. Frame. There we go. I just switched over from direct lighting to path tracing. Something I forgot to do. It's going to give us a much better result in this scattering we have going on here. It's actually some of the settings here, because once we go into path tracing, we have ridiculous sample count. Let's bring that down to something more reasonable, like 1080. I'm going to turn the GI clamp to 1. Do adaptive sampling. We'll let this run. Estimating a 30-second frame rendering time, which really isn't so bad. So we can get better reflection on that blade. Even thin one, thicker one. Nice kind of stylized reflections. Top one, I'll down just a little more. Adjusting the clipping here just a little bit, inner offset. Use a little bit more of a flame-like approach. Random frames. Nice, cool. So let's get this set up to render. I think we'll be in good shape. So I'm going to go over to Octane Renderer here in my render settings. But I'll lock this ratio. It's kind of an odd ratio, but that's fine. All frames, actually, let's do 0 to 23 because this 24th and this 0 frame are the same. Find a spot to save these. Save those as a ping. Nice. We're looking at about a 30-second frame count here. Isn't terrible. But I don't think I'm going to subject all of you to that in this particular recording. I'll share the results of where I land when I finish up here. So congratulations to those of you who made it to the end. I had a little bit of technical difficulties here, a little bit of a glitch in the stream, which I apologize for. I'll try to get this video collected sort of as one piece and uploaded together, so there is that continuity in the sort of, the recorded version of this. So thanks for bearing with me on that one. If you want to check out the work that I'm doing, hit me up on DLGNCE on Instagram and the other social medias. Check out the website at diligence.studio. New videos dropping every Tuesday, so please hit a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you want to be kept up to date. And if you like what you saw, if you thought it was useful, please check out the link in the description below and consider throwing a tip my way or joining up for a monthly donation, which gets you access to the Discord server. Really appreciate all your support and am looking forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Stuart saying good.